We was in our village when attack comes. We were captured by the rebels. My father was killed, and also my brother was killed in my prison. One thing where I don't love is like taking arm, going on the front line to go and fight. So that one of the things really impressed my heart.
In Liberia, 14 years of civil war had a great impact on young women like Gloria. They witnessed the destruction of their communities, lost loved ones, and for some, became directly involved with the fighting forces. When peace came to Liberia in 2003, the post-conflict recovery plan involved DDR, the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of ex-combatants into civilian life. Unfortunately, the plan failed to meet the long-term economic needs of many Liberian women like Gloria.
There is an astonishingly durable conception of soldiers as being men and of war about being confrontation between two types of armed forces. Whether they're recruited formally as soldiers in an army or whether they're drawn into fighting forces one way or another, women are acting as combatants in many conflicts today.
Women and girls pay a very heavy price for the contemporary conflicts because contemporary conflicts don't have a front line. They happen in the community. We have to see women not just as a victim, but we need to see the groups of women opposing or supporting violence. They have an active role. They are never neutral.
In contemporary conflicts, as much as 90% of casualties are among civilians, many of whom are women and children. The burden of caring for those wounded by armed violence disproportionately falls on women and girls. Women are the first to be affected by infrastructure breakdown, as they struggle to keep families together and care for the wounded. Women and children currently form the majority of refugee and internally displaced populations. Women in war-torn societies can face specific and devastating forms of organized sexual violence.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وفضكم في الله ندى عثمان طلحة ذاك يعني كنا هو أيام الشغل في الدفاع الشعبي هيكون في ضرب في محل بيجيبوا لنا عساكر مضروبين بودهم المستشفى وبنمشي بنشتغل معاهم وكنا بنجهز زاد المجاهد وكان جابوا ناس مجروحين نمشي المستشفيات بنسوي مداير بنسوي عصاير بنشيلها بنوديها اليوم وكده.
Women generally within armed groups and associated with armed groups play three roles. First role is of female combatants, and those are women who are formally registered with the armed groups. The second major groups are the group that we call women associated with armed forces and female supporters of armed forces. These are women who are generally not officially mobilized, meaning they may or may not be receiving an official salary, but they provide many of the same essential support services to the armed groups, including cooking, cleaning, laundry, nursing, these sorts of activities. The third group is the group of women dependents, and these are the wives and children of the armed groups.
على حسب ما فهمونا طبعاً إنه هذا البرنامج خاص بالمرأة والمرأة لازم تدافع عن نفسها بأي وسيلة مهما كانت الظروف.
Although women are increasingly becoming more visible in their roles during active combat, they are often absent when the conflict ends and peace negotiations begin. According to a report that reviewed a sample of 24 major peace processes since 1992, women were virtually absent from peace talks. Women's participation in delegations that negotiated peace treaties averaged less than 8%, and fewer than 3% of signatories to peace processes were women.
If you think about it, The neglect of women in the recovery process, in the conflict recovery process, is profoundly damaging to a country's long-term recovery prospects, even if you only consider the demographic effects of neglecting women. Because if you think about it, in most countries after a conflict, there's a baby boom. It's absolutely normal. But if you have a baby boom accompanied by low levels of female education, accompanied by 0 to nil prospects of economic empowerment for women, what you have is the production of large, uneducated families with no economic prospects, which is a recipe for radicalization. It makes the problem of conflict much, much worse. So neglecting women at any stage of recovery, but particularly the early stages, is actually very damaging.
To acknowledge the role and involvement of women in the peace and reconstruction of a war-torn society, the United Nations Security Council unanimously passed Resolution 1325 in October 2000. It was the first time the Security Council addressed the disproportionate and unique impact of armed conflict on women and recognized the undervalued and underutilized contributions women make to conflict prevention, peacekeeping, conflict resolution, and peace building. It calls on all actors to increase the participation of women and incorporate gender perspectives in all United Nations peace and security efforts.
The result of the voting is as follows. The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 1325, 2000.
Security Council Resolution 1325 was a watershed moment in the history of international peacekeeping because it was the first time that at the policy level, the entire world recognized that after a war, women and men and boys and girls need different things. They have different things to offer.
Resolution 1325 saw the Security Council recognizing not just that conflict affects women and girls in particular ways, but that women have a very special contribution to make to conflict resolution. That they have perspectives on the causes and outcomes of conflict that men don't necessarily have or share, and that they play a very important role in conflict resolution and mediation.
Key provisions of Resolution 1325 include increased participation and representation of women at all levels of decision-making, attention to specific protection over the needs of women and girls in conflict, and gender perspective in UN programming, reporting, and in Security Council missions, and in post-conflict processes, including DDR.
DDR is disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. This is the process by which men and women who are in armed forces and associated with the armed forces become civilians.
In the disarmament phase, weapons are collected, documented, and destroyed. During demobilization, armed groups are formally disbanded. Combatants and their commanders are taken to cantonment sites and are assessed for recovery packages and relocation options. The reinsertion phase offers incentives, such as cash payments, in-kind assistance, and vocational training.
On DDR and the importance of addressing gender equality issues up front, DDR is a great opportunity to signal to society that women's contribution to and role in the conflict is understood and recognized. Women's leadership in various aspects of the conflict is recognized.
الفترة الأولى صبحونا وأدونا جزء من القروش وأدونا تومين والحمد لله يعني فرحنا بها كثير لأنه ما كنا خاطين حاجة زي دي واخترت الدكان.
When a successful DDR program is implemented, women can reap large benefits, not only for themselves and their families, but the community at large.
طبعاً بديت بذرة اشتريت ذرة وبيعت الذرة وربحت فيها. بعد ما بيعت الذرة فكرت في شراء أواني أواني تكون للبيع وأخرى للمناسبات وكخدمة إنسانية للوفيات. يعني أنا في حيين ما بأجر بنقود وإنما في المناسبات السارة.
As with many other programs in development and in also post-conflict recovery, there have been historic gender imbalances in DDR program implementation. The first one has been related to identifying women to participate in DDR programs. It's very difficult to find the women who were supporting the armed groups or who were even fighting because they've already gone back to their communities or other communities and restarted their lives. The second imbalance relates to the package and the services that are offered directly through the DDR program. Making kits that are appropriate for women and giving women reintegration packages that are appropriate but not confining has been a challenge. The third imbalance has been that across the world, and especially in post-conflict contexts, there are not enough services available for women. You don't have enough services to respond to trauma that women experience, to respond to women's childcare needs, to their health needs, and this has an impact in the DDR program's ability to deliver if we don't have implementing partners on the ground that have specialized expertise in catering for women's economic and social needs.
DDR also plays an important role in transitioning ex-combatants into a country's new security force as police officers and security guards, which, if done properly, can help reinforce the peace settlement. This can foster mutual trust between former enemies and become a strong driving force for sustainable peace. Security sector reform can ensure the long-term success of DDR and can prevent peace spoilers and the resurgence of armed violence.
Integrating more women to the police is an incredibly positive thing to do. DDR programs should offer a unique opportunity, like a once-off opportunity, to get a large number of women with combat experience of one kind or another to come into security forces.
By empowering women, we build stronger societies. When a crowd needs to be controlled, a house searched, or suspect questioned, a policewoman's presence can diffuse tension and guard against offense.
With a stronger national security force, UN troop-contributing countries may offer more female officers and military personnel to the UN's peacekeeping and political mission. Currently, more than 13,000 police officers from around the world are serving at UN missions, but less than 10% of them are women. In Haiti, Bangladesh's first female contingent was deployed in 2010 to carry out humanitarian activities and community policing.
Protecting human rights, especially on women and children, and securing and maintaining law and orders, thus making the environment stable.
More and more we are having this kind of female capacities deployed, and they are very useful, not only on the work they can give, they do in the communities, but also role modeling. If she can do it, why not me? Because traditional gender roles don't call for women to do these kind of things.
We don't have that much to celebrate. In the 10 years since the resolution has been passed, we've seen peace negotiation after peace negotiation where women are completely absent. The UN has never appointed a woman chief mediator to a peace negotiation. There are very, very few women leading peacekeeping missions. Numbers of women, uniformed peacekeepers remain very, very low.
Sometimes we feel that people think that the resolution is intended just for the UN and for the mandates of UN, for the missions and peacekeeping, peace building and all that. But it's not the case. It's also for the member states, and how do they apply it?
The real problem is implementing this on the ground. Every person is different, every person's experience of conflict is different, every person's trauma is different, every community is different. The costs are enormous, monitoring DDR is very expensive. So frankly, this is the most challenging part of post-conflict recovery.
One of the interesting things that I've seen in implementing gender-responsive DDR, both here and in other contexts, is that bringing women together across the various fault lines of a conflict can often become a galvanizing, peace-building factor in many communities. And the Hakamas project brought together women from both sides of the conflict who had been enemies before and had been encouraging their men to fight each other before, together to spread a new message of peace building and hope and recovery.
Contemporary conflicts will continue to have women and girls on the front line of war, as fighters, as supporters, and as storytellers. They may take on leadership roles and make critical decisions about the future of their people. When women count, they can be incredible agents for peace. And like Gloria, they can put tragedies that come along with war behind them to look forward to a healthier and productive future.
That even a Nila woman have become a president, for that alone it encouraged me, and I want to be like her or more than her. See, so this is why I want to really go to school and know more.